Since its inception, nearly 130 years ago, cinema has dazzled and delighted audiences across the globe. Since even before the birth of Hollywood, motion pictures have impacted countless lives through thrilling stories of heroism, romance, action, and humor. And sometimes, movies shake us out of our comfort zones.
The movie scare you at all? Yes, ma'am, it did.
It was horrible. I never seen anything gross like that in my life.
Forcing us to confront the darker aspects of life. And films set in or created in Ireland are certainly no exception. So, let's take a look at Irish movies, their roots, their enduring impact, and how they have mirrored both life in Ireland and the world's perception of the Irish people. Grab a pencil, because we're going to give you a long list of must-see cinema, starting now. In the later part of the 19th century and into the early 20th century, Ireland, just like anywhere else in the world, caught the fever for this newfangled moving picture technology. Many consider the first instance of Irish film to be footage shot of Dublin's O'Connell Street in 1897. The piece was recorded by a cameraman for the Lumiere brothers. Then, in 1909, the great James Joyce himself set up Ireland's first official venue for showing movies, the Volta Cinema in Dublin. The very next year, an immigrant story titled The Lad from Ireland became the first fiction film to be completed on the island. It's just 12 minutes long, but offers a tantalizing glimpse into everyday life in Ireland at the turn of the 19th century. Although the interior shots were filmed in America, the exteriors were all shot in Ireland. So, over time, the Emerald Isle became a very popular choice for filmmakers from all over the world, thanks to its beautiful scenery and unique visual appeal. Ireland's lush and varied terrain, from green countrysides and rocky coastlines to old cities and quaint villages, never fails to captivate and impress viewers. During the 1940s, the Irish government established the Irish Film Institute and the National Film Studios, both of which helped to promote the industry and support local filmmakers. And this, in turn, resulted in one very iconic movie. In 1952, Irish-American director John Ford, known for his iconic films such as Stagecoach, The Searchers, and The Grapes of Wrath, to name a few, traveled to his ancestors' land to produce The Quiet Man, starring John Wayne. This movie would go on to become a defining image of the Irish people, for better or for worse. As endearing as the movie is, and it is a classic, it also contains a major flaw: stereotyping. Stereotypes in Irish cinema have been a long-standing issue. From the portrayal of the Irish as criminals or heavy drinkers to B-movie leprechauns, films set in or about Ireland have often perpetuated old caricatures. Stereotypes that have been used to marginalize Irish people for centuries, actually.
Now let me see. Whiskey? No, that'd be too warm and it'd get your blood up. Potter's the very thing.
The Quiet Man is a pretty good example, unfortunately. The film stars John Wayne as an American boxer who comes to Ireland and falls in love with a local woman, played to great aplomb by Maureen O'Hara. Despite the lush cinematography and exquisite production design, the film is known for its depiction of Irish people as being loud, violent, and often inebriated, though it's trying to do so in an endearing way. For example, the character Micheline O'Flynn, played by Barry Fitzgerald, is not seen sober once throughout the 2-hour runtime.
Could you use a little water in your whiskey?
When I drink whiskey, I drink whiskey. And when I drink water, I drink water.
By the way, did you know that Irish people never say "top of the morning" to ya? That's totally a Quiet Man thing. But perhaps the most egregious example of exploitative stereotypes appeared in Walt Disney's production of Darby O'Gill and the Little People from 1959. Despite impressive optical effects, the Sean Connery-led fantasy flick is rampant with cliches and stereotypes created by the American gaze. Ironically, but not surprisingly, it was shot entirely in California. Perhaps the most humorous summation of the Disney film and its problems comes from independent filmmaker John Sayles when discussing his own film, The Secret of Drone-Inish. Quote, "My casting director in Ireland would have the word dog next to certain actors' names. I asked her what that was about, and she said it stood for Darby O'Gill, meaning that the actor tended towards a stage Irish character, especially when an American is looking at them." Meanwhile, native Irish cinema has a rich and storied history that reflects the country's tumultuous past and its indomitable spirit. And its impact extends far beyond the shores of Ireland. As far back as the emergence of primitive silent films, Irish filmmakers sought to challenge the prevailing narratives of British rule and assert their own cultural identity. 1918's Knocknagow, The Homes of Tipperary, is a historical drama set during the potato famine of the 1840s. 1935 saw the release of the first Irish-language sync sound film, Ichi an Hush, A Night of Storytelling. Which lovingly retells the Irish legend of a fisherman and his encounter with the fairy folk. But the elephant in the room, so to say, is the Irish Rebellion of 1916. This marked a huge turning point in the country's history. Led by figures such as Patrick Pearse and James Connolly, the movement sought to overthrow British rule and establish an independent Irish republic. Although the rebellion was ultimately suppressed, its spirit lived on in the hearts and minds of the Irish people. And this spirit was illuminated by a new generation of filmmakers who were very eager to tell the stories that showed Irish poverty, oppression, and the fight for freedom. Films like 1935's The Informer and 1936's The Plough and the Stars, both directed by John Ford, crystallized the spirit of resistance and resilience. It's kind of ironic considering that this is the same guy who then later made The Quiet Man. Many decades later, renowned Irish director Neil Jordan would tackle the fallout of the Easter Rising in his biopic, Michael Collins. Which starred Liam Neeson in the titular role of the Irish Revolutionary. With an expansive and epic scope, this international co-production became one of the most expensive films ever produced in Ireland. Michael Collins' spiritual successor, as it were, was 2006's The Wind That Shakes the Barley, starring Cillian Murphy. Internationally acclaimed, engrossing, and heart-wrenching, this story follows two young brothers from County Cork who joined the Irish Republican Army in 1920. The Wind That Shakes the Barley won the Palme d'Or at 2006's Cannes Film Festival for director Ken Loach. It also set a record in Ireland as the highest-grossing Irish-made independent film. Irish cinema has covered more recent history as well. The Troubles in Northern Ireland during the late 20th century provided the backdrop for many films exploring themes of conflict and identity. Movies such as In the Name of the Father, directed by Jim Sheridan, delved into the political complexities surrounding IRA-related issues. This crime drama follows Daniel Day-Lewis as an Irishman who must share a prison cell with his father for a crime they did not commit.
Hit me like a real father!
Sheridan, who also helmed My Left Foot, later reunited with Day-Lewis to recreate the devastating timeline of events surrounding the Guildford Four, a group of young people wrongly convicted of pub bombings in 1974.
Until the guilty ones are brought to justice, I will fight on! In the name of my father! And of the truth!
Another very powerful vision was 2002's Bloody Sunday. Shot in gritty documentary style by journalist-turned-director Paul Greengrass, the film meticulously plots the tragic protest-fueled shootings in Derry Island on January 30th, 1972. The day that would become known as Bloody Sunday. In the Name of the Father and Bloody Sunday were released only about a decade apart. Highly praised and respected, they have so far been unmatched in their historically accurate depictions of this dark era. Lending a more intimate perspective are 2002's The Magdalene Sisters, directed by Peter Mullen, and Hunger, directed by Steve McQueen. Each tackles difficult topics formerly considered taboo in Irish discourse, namely institutional abuse by the Catholic Church and the hunger strikes during the Troubles. Their unflinching portrayals stand out as disturbingly accurate. So, politically charged films like these have allowed Irish filmmakers to use their craft to confront the darkest aspects of life in Ireland. Though they may be difficult to watch, their power leaves a lasting mark beyond the silver screen. Like all art, film can thus play a crucial role in healing and reconciliation. But historical movies aren't the only contributions defining Ireland's voice. There have been plenty of lighthearted works as well. Back in 1991, The Commitments charmed audiences with the unlikely story of working-class Dubliners who form a 10-piece soul band, despite consisting of all white members. Mirroring the history of many real-life bands, the film charts the rise of a musical group in the face of economic hardship and prejudices. Shot on location in Dublin with a shoestring budget, the romantic drama Once tells the tale of an immigrant and a musician who meet, fall in love, and record music together despite their differing backgrounds. Made in 2007 for less than $200,000 US, this low-budget indie darling took the world by storm, impressing the likes of Steven Spielberg and Bob Dylan, and with good reason. It was the first Irish film to win an Oscar for Best Song.
Amazing. What are we doing here? This is mad. We made this film 2 years ago. We shot it on 2 handy cams. It took us 3 weeks to make. We made it for $100,000. We never thought we'd ever come into a room like this and be in front of you people.
Irish creators have also shown they can really terrify us. In recent years, Ireland's rich folklore has fueled a renaissance in the horror genre. In the last 6 years alone, Ireland has produced 20 horror films. And banshees and vampires are just a few of the creepy crawlers to be seen. One of my favorites is 2019's sci-fi thriller Vivarium, which drew inspiration from Ireland's ghost housing estates. These are properties that were abandoned during financial crisis. The film is surreal in the extreme, like a nightmare sculpted out of an escape room. The director, Lorcan Finnegan, explained it like this: "It was a way about talking about the social contract and people being trapped by a system." Now, if you're squeamish, or you just want something the whole clan can enjoy, so to speak, you really need to check out the work of Irish animation studio Cartoon Saloon. Based in Kilkenny, they have produced a series of animated films inspired by Irish mythology and Celtic ornamental art. Their 3 big projects, The Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, and Wolfwalkers, have each been nominated for Best Animated Feature Film. Each one is inspiring and intoxicatingly beautiful to look at, and each spotlights the country's heritage. As one of their directors, Tom Moore, explains it, quote, "We're part of the rediscovery of Irish culture. We've had a strange relationship with how Ireland gets represented on screen in other countries, and so we wanted to speak for our own culture for the next generation." And if you think about it, those words sum up the whole of this story, don't they? From the gritty realism of Ken Loach to the poetic lyricism of John Carney, Irish cinema has grown a distinct voice that speaks in a way that is both universal and deeply rooted in their culture. But this success is not solely reliant on the creative talents of filmmakers or the beauty of the country's landscape. The scene rather thrives thanks to continuing support provided by the government. For instance, Ireland's Section 481 legislation provides tax incentives for film and television productions. Under 481, productions can claim a tax credit of up to 32% of the money they spend in Ireland. And this incentive has been instrumental in attracting international filmmakers to choose Ireland for filming. The Broadcast Act of 2009 introduced measures to support the production of broadcasting and culturally significant works. This legislation ensures funding for projects that promote Ireland's culture, heritage, and national identity. So all of this together has helped Ireland position itself as a worthy destination for both large-scale productions and smaller independent projects. Not surprising then that this past year we were treated to Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin.
Why wouldn't he answer the door to me?
Maybe he just doesn't like you no more.
Quirky and original, this film stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. It was shot on location in Inishmore and Achill Island in County Mayo. Banshees received a staggering 9 Academy Award nominations and was a hit in the Irish box office. Set in 1923, the film commits to authentic native speech, while the breathtaking cinematography heightens the isolation that is felt by the characters.
You do like me.
I don't.
You liked me yesterday.
Oh, did I? Yeah.
Released in the very same year, but achieving an even richer and more intimate representation of Irish culture, is the film An Culling Cuin, or The Quiet Girl. As the title suggests, the coming-of-age film set in 1981 almost exclusively uses Waterford Gaelic as the dialogue. Following its world premiere at the prestigious Berlin Film Festival, The Quiet Girl dominated the Irish Film and Television Awards with 11 nominations and 7 wins.
Huge congratulations, well done. I think you're right, it is a watershed moment. It's just phenomenal. And congrats to all of you.
And more impressively, made history by becoming the first Irish film to be nominated in the Best International Feature Film category.
The moment history was made. On Colleen Kuhn, The Quiet Girl, to its international audience, nominated for an Oscar. For director and writer Colm and his wife and film producer Cleona, a moment they barely dreamed of.
66 years after the category for non-English language films was created, Ireland finally earned its first Academy nomination, despite producing countless critically and commercially successful films throughout the years. The Irish language film surprised many by shattering box office records in spite of a relatively unknown cast and a first-time director, Dublin native Colm Baird. In an industry saturated with tentpole franchises, the massive international success of a smaller film like The Quiet Girl is a promising ray of hope for many Irish creatives. Screen Ireland's chief executive, Desiree Finnegan, said, "It really feels like a new horizon for Irish language cinema, and a beautiful expression of our national culture on screen." Whether they're starring in smaller independent projects or blockbuster historical epics, performers like Cillian Murphy, Saoirse Ronan, Barry Keoghan, and Michael Fassbender are just a few of the many talented exports from Ireland who are working hard to represent their home country. Most recently and notably, rising star Barry Keoghan has been widely recognized for his work in the controversial drama thriller Saltburn.
Well, someone has to entertain us all.
Right.
This young actor enjoyed a stratospheric rise to success after his breakout role in another Irish production, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. A Dublin native and BAFTA winner, Keoghan summed up where the Irish industry is at in his opinion by saying this.
You know, it encourages the arts at home, and that, I mean, we are an island of storytelling and, you know, great actors and poets and writers, and I mean, it helps the industry massively at home and kind of encourages people to kind of send the scripts in and go for what they want to do. So
there are many, many other films we could mention, but hopefully we've inspired you to see some of these important works of art. And the big takeaway is this: by acknowledging and deconstructing stereotypes, Irish cinema has moved towards a more authentic and diverse representation of its people. It is actively redefining Irish identity on the global stage. Emerging young creative voices are fueling what constitutes a real renaissance, and current advances in technology and streaming are opening those doors even wider. Despite a fiercely competitive and ever-changing market, Irish films are taking a rich cultural inheritance and building a thoughtful, inspiring, and often cathartic new body of work on top of it. Okay, so that is, as they say, a wrap, I guess. Clearly, there's a lot of films that we were not able to cover, and I'm wondering what your favorites are. Did we list your favorite? Is there something that you wish we had mentioned? Or of all the films we talked about just now, which one are you most excited about seeing? Personally, my favorite in this exploration turned out to be Bloody Sunday. I was really, really blown away by the reality of that one. Tell us in the comments what you think of Irish cinema and what you love and where you think it's going. And by all means, if you're interested in other Irish content, do check out our playlist on that. And in the meantime, have a great day, guys.